So welcome back to another match preview here at the Gallagher. It's our fourth away game coming up this season, and it's at Enfield. So before we start, we both just want to echo Fred's views from the latest hot take. Things aren't going great on the pitch right now, and all of us at the club, we're fans first and volunteers and employees second. I personally have had the great privilege of organising commentaries for this club for about 5.5 years now, commentating for almost 7. I've loved almost every minute, be it Joel Powell against St Albans, Levi Manchie at Dartford or Ollie Pearce at Worthing. Football is about shared moments and the joy and the heartache that they bring. So when results aren't going well, we should remember not to take it out on others. Let's try to be civil, let's try to be constructive, try and be kind, and let's hope that more joy than heartache follows between now and the end of this season. And we all want success, and it will come again. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Now back to that preview. Before we look at the Enfield trip, we must of course acknowledge the last 2 results. The draw at Boreham Wood and then the disaster, shall we say, that was Chelmsford on Tuesday. So first up, Boreham Wood. Nigel, you saw it firsthand. Green shoots, as you said. Could have won it from behind late on there as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think we was in control of the game throughout, really. I mean, it started off with Maidstone on the attack. Boreham Wood did get a goal and they did have a little spell of sort of like pressure, but I don't think it was, they never opened Maidstone up at any point. We controlled the possession in the second half. Again, Boreham Wood came out right at the beginning of the second half and probably about 5 or 10 minutes, had a few shots, a couple of corners and that, but then once we sort of grew into it, I think we was looked really good, and we could have won it and probably should have won it. We kind of mentioned it on hot take but didn't really follow it through, but even looking back on the highlights now, I can't for the life of me see John Benton's goal being ruled out. Obviously you can see it did sort of bounce up on his arm, but in no way did he sort of make an involuntary movement to the ball. It was just his natural reaction, so it could easily have been given on another day. And we just continued to put our foot to the pedal from that point, and we got our goal with Temi coming in with another header from a direct throw from assist king Ben Brooks, and and then we had the chances at the end, and I said it on the hot take, didn't I, that at that point there was only going to be one team that was going to win it, and it was definitely Maidstone. So definitely at that point a few real positive shoots of recovery. Not that we're not in a dip by any means. It's obviously this was before Chelmsford, but do you know what I mean? The signs were there that you could continue on that form and against another sort of IE promotion sort of favourite team. They were a strong team. We said it in our preview, didn't we? A lot of the players were there from last year. There was no sort of real weaknesses, and we matched them. And at times, like I say, we deserved to win it. So it was all in all a very good performance, I thought.
So on to that Chelmsford game. The defeat on Tuesday, not exactly double rough justice on the Stones. They did get what they deserved. Poor defending for the most part. Hasn't really been an issue this season for the Stones. Chelmsford, they had a lack of confidence themselves, I thought, for the results they'd had. Obviously unbeaten at home, lost all their games away up till that point. Stones 2-0 down, the right-sided areas, good half dozen chances that the Clarets had. 2-0 down with some positional issues on that right-hand side. Then made the change to a 5 at the back to alleviate that issue. Chelmsford laid off the pressure for some time, and then I thought that we might be able to get back into that game, but it was those 3 goals at the end that just really made the result as bad as it was, and the performance frankly as well. And a lot of people have said online that we can be happy clapping, we can be quite positive about things. Clearly there's a long way to go in this season, but I don't think anybody is under any illusions that if it carries on like this, we're going to be up a certain creek with or without a paddle at this stage. And it's, I'll be optimistic when you get a narrow defeat, but when you get a bit of the kicking like that, it's something that you really have to, have a word with yourselves. It's the management team's job at the end of the day to find out what's going wrong. I said that Chelmsford were drop zone curious, ironically, beforehand, and now of course with those late couple of goals, it's the Stones that find themselves behind them in the table. So they're going to have to take a leaf out of the Clarets playbook now and get that win out of nowhere, which is essentially what Chelmsford did. How did you see Tuesday night?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what everyone said, really. You know, we always say the old adage, don't look at the table. It's not up till 10 games, but it's not up to 10 over, and you know, you don't look at it until 10 games. But Saturday will be game 8, so you know we're getting, you know, there's no getting away from it. It's been a horrendous start to the season, not what anybody expected. I think it's probably the first real big test for George in his management career. I mean, he came in, didn't he, on the back of we had that little bit of trophy success when he came in. Although we didn't win a league game, you know, he was never expected to win a league game. He had to get a gel free card really at that point, didn't he? And then he continued that on with the FA Cup run last year. You know, yes, we got to the playoffs, but you know, you've had that day at Ipswich, you've had all those, so there's a little bit there. But now he's like really against it, and he's players. You know, there's no, you know, when he first came in, he was just having to manage with other people's players and, you know, get his own formations into that system. But you know, there's no hiding away from it now, and you know, all of the players have said that they've signed for this club because of George. So they need to sort of stand up and own the situation now, and you know, literally start, you know, if they're here for George, they've got to really, you know, buy into that ethos of what he's trying to, you know, and he said it, you know, he said it in his interview on Tuesday evening. This is a big club. At this level, this is a big club. This is, you know, not on the same scale, but in relative terms, you know, playing for Barcelona or Real Madrid, you're in that little, you know, cauldron of, you know, even on Tuesday night, 1,900 people here on a Tuesday night. You know, obviously you didn't know what the result was going to be, but it's come off the back of 2 defeats at home, or 2 poor performances at home as well, with the Hampton and Richmond game. It's like, you know, they've got to be able to deal with that. You know, you know, people will have their opinions. You're not going to get everybody, like we said, the happy clappers. Not everybody's going to be positive. You know, there are going to be people that see things differently. And you know, in training, you know what you're trying to implement, and you know what you're trying to do. So you've got to start delivering. You know, there's no hiding away from that now. You know, from my point of view, I think, you know, when we've been missing certain players in the midfield, I don't think we've had that control in certain games. Yeah. I mean, and it's just getting those 2 facets of the game working in tandem. I mean, a lot of people said for like 60 minutes on Tuesday, we were the better team. We was playing some good stuff, and we were trying to attack. We were trying to chase an equaliser. But that second goal was the case in point. You know, a lucky flick. You know, I say lucky, but he kind of shinned it. It wasn't intentional. When the bounce just caught Alexis out. He didn't know whether to come for the ball or not come for the ball. And then you're 2-1 down to a half that you didn't deserve to be behind in. Yeah. You know, and then you've got to come out and try and attack. And if you're not, you know, if the confidence isn't there, it's going to be very difficult. And then like the third goal went in the fourth and the fifth, and then, you know, it's literally like, it really doesn't matter really, I suppose, if you lose 1-0 or 2-0, but at least they was going for it, you know. They was going for the win, which, again, but it's just getting that balance right. And you said it as well there about, you know, it's the different formations that he's playing. So, or we're playing, you know, it's Charlie Seaman looks really good as a wing-back role, but then as a back 4, you're susceptible to that overload, and teams are going to sort of try and highlight that, and that's you know, we're getting into the season now where teams scout you. They know what you're going to do. They know the personnel and what you do. So it's about us coming up with countermeasures for that and trying to, like I said on the preview of Chelmsford, we've got to implement. This is our stadium, our home ground. We've got to be the one bossing the game. We've got to be the one that's, you know, really sort of getting the crowd on the edge of their seats, because, you know, at the moment a lot of the fans are feeling that, you know, they're paying their money, but they're not getting. It's a results business, isn't it?
It is.
You know,
it is.
You know, and it's great that we're playing. We are. You can see. You know, if you like look at the game, you can see what we're trying to do. And we have got some really good players. You know, they've all proven themselves at this level. So there's no excuses. But it's just that little missing ingredient, I think. And you know, hopefully they can sort of come up with that formation in training and start just getting some positive results. And I'm sure once the positive results come and the confidence comes, I mean, it's good as a positive. I know we lost 5-1, but Aaron Blair did get a goal. You know, it was his first one. and so that's hopefully will build his confidence a little bit better. Ben Brooks has shown, as we said, the assist king. He's been really good since he's come in. So there was another one, Charlie Seaman, bit in and out of injuries, but you can see that you can all these players, you can see what they bring to the team. But it's just about coming together as a collective and really sort of like, and I'm sure we will get a result like Chelmsford have got, and hopefully that will come on. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully that will come on Saturday at Enfield.
And just to go back to that point there, Nigel, about the switch from the back four to the back five, the issue was, of course, Reece, cover star, of course, on Tuesday. He was unavailable, so he's on international duty at the moment. And Rafe getting his literal first minutes of the season as well, because I don't think he featured in pre-season from memory. So he's literally been thrown in. It's the only other option that the Stones had at the back. Again, not thinking of excuses, but going, well, these things, if they are going to build up and you are having a bad run, they don't go your way.
I mean, you're not just his ability, Reece, but you miss that, the height at the back there. Do you know what I mean? And that's generic. You can't help that. The players are all they're good enough in their own right, but I think because we was really trying to take the game to Chelmsford at that point. I think we was playing a higher line anyway. Yeah. So again, that ball it was just a freak goal in that respect. That it was a ball pumped forward, and they latched on it and punished us. And again, when your luck's down, they go in, don't they? Yeah. He could have took it round Alexis and shot up into the Genko stand, and it probably wouldn't have unfolded like it did. But they always say, isn't it? That minute before half time is the worst time to concede, and it just changed the whole complex of the game at that point. And but that's what we've got to sort of iron out. And that's the test for George and the management team, isn't it? To come up with answers to those quandaries, because you can't be just, putting results in like that. Yeah, one you can forgive for our season, and George said it in his interview on Tuesday night. Hopefully, we draw a line in the sand. This is the lowest of the lows, and we can start to climb up.
Fingers crossed.
Away.
Exactly. Just to round off the Chelmsford chat, a couple of stats to finish that review on. Remember, it's now 4 without a home win, which is bad in its own right. But of course, joy of joys, that National League season you've already alluded to, Nigel. We had 12 without a win at home in that particular National League season. So a long way to go before it gets truly biblical, despite the weather. And it's the worst home defeat as well since February 2015, when we also lost 5-1, that same scoreline in the Kent Senior Cup against Charlton Athletic. So to Enfield, after their promotion to the National League South at the end of last season at Chatham's expense, their manager Gavin McPherson is no stranger to playoff success. So let's have a look at that squad he's assembled down at Donkey Lane. So we'll start with the goalkeeper Reece Forster. He spent time with Gavin McPherson at Met Police before moving over with him. He had 17 clean sheets last season in that playoff winning side. So Nigel, we always seem to get to this stage of a preview rather, and mention the relationships with the goalkeepers and their managers. So it's another perfect example here, having played with this manager for several clubs now. Yeah.
Again, it's like we said about these teams before, isn't it? The consistency is the key there. So if you've got a good relationship, some players just perform well with a certain manager. I don't know if he's been away and if he's been to other clubs as well, but he obviously gets on with the manager there, and it's somebody that he wants to continue working with. And likewise, McPherson's got every confidence in his goalie, which is what you want, isn't it? Especially as a newly promoted team, when you're gonna face more shots than most, especially early season. I mean, when we come on to their results, but they are down in the bottom 4, aren't they? And they were everybody's pick to sort of finish bottom and go down. So yeah, he's certainly going to be a busy boy, I think. Hopefully that continues on Saturday.
Fingers crossed again, yes. So in the back line for Enfield, we've got Joe Payne in his 4th season at the club. He got 11 assists last season. Bernie Tanner is another ex-Met Police player. He scored in the playoff final after only signing in February last season. Josh Nembard was signed from Dartford. Mickey Parcell has over 200 appearances in what is now his 6th season at the club. Alex Solomon was at Hampton and Richmond last season. John Oyenuga was Dover's player of the season last season. He signed on in the summer for Enfield. So some players that rescued from dropping into the Isthmian League, and some who've starred down there before, all wanting to show what they can do in the south again.
Yeah, I mean it's a big season for them, isn't it? You know, there's some familiar names there. Parcells is one that, like you say, I'm sure he's played against Maidstone before. He's got all the appearances there, and like that Met Police team that you said that McPherson was, in our Isthmian Premier days, they were quite a sort of challenging going into them games, wasn't it? So yeah, it's interesting to see how they adapt to this level. I mean, they've had a few sort of, as we've said, a few tonkins, but they've had some decent performances, and whether that's just the promotional bounce that's the adrenaline that's getting them there, and like we say, it does sort of start to plateau out now. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of how those players sort of adapt to that level.
So in the midfield, Sam Youngs is approaching 300 appearances for Enfield. He's into his 6th season. He also got a staggering 43 goal contributions in 52 games last season. Oliver Knight is another ex-Met Police Brigade squadron leader, whatever other positions there are, Colonel, Sergeant Major. Scott Thomas is another one in his 6th season at the club, and Naldo Krasnicki was a summer recruit, no relation that I'm aware of. He'd featured at Oxford City last season. Kanya Leshabela has Premier League minutes from his time at Leicester City. Billy Leonard was Hendon's Players and Supporters Player of last season. Dylan Ajay Hersey is in his 2nd season at Donkey Lane after almost a decade at AFC Wimbledon. Herson Alves is another one of the ex-Met Police crew as well. There's quite a few of them, there's a theme. Lewis Taff, who scored both Enfield Town's last goal in the Isthmian Premier Division, as well as their first in the National League South. Summer edition Jack Smith played at Dartford last season. So I've got through that list eventually there, Nigel. There's a large number of players there that McPherson's worked with before, and some that we've seen have been on this long journey with Enfield these last few years now as they've raised up the ranks.
Yeah, exactly. It's that continuity, isn't it? And also he's sort of got players that he has got in, a local player like Hendon and that North London sort of area. So it's always difficult for promoted clubs, isn't it? To establish themselves, especially at this level. I think coming up from the Isthmian League, because you're coming up against full-time or hybrid full-time sides that sort of rely on players dropping out of the Football League. So it's about where Enfield, they've got to establish themselves at this level, haven't they, before they can start. There's a few sort of like local clubs around that area that they can probably get a pool of players from. But first of all, you have really got to, because you're not a name in that league, and they want to see how you sort of establish yourself. So they're not going to loan players out to you and that, because if you're going to get a Tonkin every week, because that's not a good experience for these youngsters, is it? So, as you said there, there's a lot of players from the Met Police. So McPherson's definitely going with that continuity that he's had before, and he trusts these players, and that at the end of the day is what you want when you're trying to establish yourself, isn't it? Players that you can trust, that will roll their sleeves up and play, and get the odd battling performance. And it's like we've said with all of these teams that are expected to struggle. You've got to get that sort of a formula that works for you. So I'm probably expecting a game that's going to be similar to what we've seen with these other teams that we've played, like Chippenham. I don't think they can go toe to toe with Maidstone, but they'll have a game plan they're set in. That they'll be defensively resolute and look to exploit Maidstone on the break, and especially after such a bad performance on Tuesday night, they're going to think it's a good time to play Maidstone. So that's something that we're going to have to be very wary of, isn't it?
Very, yes. So in the forward line, Rhys Beckles-Richards had 16 goal contributions for the playoff winning side last season. Michael Falevi was at Hemel last season. Hisham Kasimu finished last season at Farnborough, having played in the 1-0 defeat by the Stones back in April. Lennon Peak is yet another product of the West Ham Academy, and Nana Owusu is back on a dual registration with the club that he left in the summer. Walton and Hersham is where he'll be, and Obu Onyegawara has come through Stevenage and Dartford youth setups. So your thoughts on that striking setup they've got there? Some young names and some that we've come across again in the past, as usual.
Yeah, but the big one there is obviously Marcus Wiley, who left last season. I think he had 40 goals or something like that, and plus contributions for other goals. So that's a big void to fill, isn't it? He's now playing up the road at Gillingham here. So yeah, again, that's to lose those amount of goals. I mean, they've got Michael Falovi in. His last appearance, I think he's glad that it's probably going to be at Donkey Lane, because I don't think his last experience playing here was that Hemel game at the back end of last season when he was carried off with concussion, wasn't he? And
that's right.
They scored from that resulting free kick from that big delay we had there. So yeah, he's an able replacement. He's an ex-Watford junior, so again local to the area, and he's played at Boreham Wood and Hemel Hempstead, so he knows where the goal is. But again, Marcus Wiley was there for so long, and he scored so many goals from, and he knew the way they played. So it's integrating your sort of style of play into a system that's tried and trusted for the manager. So it's all about, from Mason's point of view, just being wary of those threats. But like I keep saying, implement your game plan onto it. There's going to be weaknesses there. We've got to exploit those, and that's what it comes down to. And there's so much expectation on us to get a result, and we probably need the result more than what Enfield do, if that makes sense, because
they won't say that, but I do.
No,
agree with you.
but these are not going to the games that could. There's no getting away from it. Enfield are in a relegation battle. Their aim is to finish just outside the relegation zone, isn't it? So their big games are going to be in the teams that are in and around them, or expected to be in and around them. They're not expected to get anything. It's kind of like a free hit from them. Yes, they're promoting it. I see they're promoting it on their website as this is the biggest game we've had, in our recent history, and Maidstone United FA Cup kings and all this lot, and they're trying to boost the crowd that way. But it is a free hit for them. It would be good if they can. For them, it would be good if they can get something from it. But they're not expected to get a result. That's not going to define their season. It'll be a morale booster, but that's all it is. But yeah, that's what it's going to come down to, I think. So it's just it's going to be an interesting game for sure, because there's pressure, like we say, on both teams for different reasons.
So the early season form for Enfield, as we've already alluded to, you might be relieved to hear as well, it's actually worse than what the Stones is, although that didn't help last time out against Chelmsford either, frankly. Their only win was a 1-0 home victory against Weston-super-Mare. The other 6 matches, of course, have all been defeats. So the Stones are still unbeaten on the road this season, Nigel. Enfield's only win was at home, as I've already mentioned there. 1 win apiece so far. So I think you might have already alluded to it, potentially how you think it might go, but who do you think, whose form's more likely to improve come 3 o'clock Saturday?
Well, obviously I'm going to say Maidstone, and you're just hoping, fingers crossed, that we're going to find that little bit of something, whether it's a little bit of luck or a little bit of something to go our way, a referee decision, or something like that to go our way to give us that little bit of a kick start, because it's needed. There's just no shying away from it. The pressure is there, and the longer this sort of run of indifferent results goes, the pressure will get greater and greater. Coming up after, we will come on to our next preview, but coming up after this game is the FA Cup game. Against a fellow National League South side. Yes, we're at home, but after the exploits of last year, if we're going into that game off of the back of another indifferent result, it's going to be like, it's going to be, that pressure's just going to ramp up and up and up. So, like I said to you, like I said at the beginning of this preview, it's down to the players. They're the only ones that can change it. You've got to block that outside noise off. all that that's going on around you.
And do you think playing away from home might be an
I
advantage
think
for
it might
Saturday
be.
as well?
I
Because it's
think
much
so.
less of a pressure cooker. We do
Yeah.
have a good following away from home. You know, always take a good 100-200 with us wherever we go, bare minimum. But I do think that has played a part
I
this
do think
season,
so.
and that's not a negative against any of us fans or any of you out there watching. It's just it gets like that sometimes at this place, and there's a lot of home grounds that are like that, and the form just ebbs away because, you know, the Genko is such a wall of noise, and the irony being that it's not segregated this season and it's all there for the Stones going forward, and yet that's happened, and that sort of it's gone the opposite way. It's just a strange thing again,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is. You know, you can't put your finger on it. You know, you just can't put your finger on it. You know, we don't know as fans and you know, volunteers and all the roles we play around the club. You know, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You don't know what, you know, players what their emotions they're going through. But the one person that does is the team, the teammates and and George and the management team. You know, and if a player is having an off game, it's down to the other players to step up and take that magnitude, because at the moment we're having too many players that are off of that expectation, and it's just having a negative effect on everybody. So, you know, it's in our hands, as it always is. You know, it's in our hands, but, you know, as I say, as the weeks go on, that pressure just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the only way to alleviate that is to start putting some positive results on the board. And you know, we've said it before, football fans are fickle. You know, it's a results business. As soon as you start winning, all that goes out the window. Do you know what I mean? You know, and everything then becomes rosy in the garden again. So, and it's a frustration, I suppose, as well from the fan base. And that, you know, like you said, it's about being at home. You know, if there's a misplaced pass, you're that that groan, it goes like a ripple effect around the ground, doesn't it? So it's got an effect on these players, especially those that are not used to it. You know, they're coming from these not to be disrespectful, but littler clubs that doesn't get the big fan base. You know, but it matters to, you know, Maidstone fans are concerned because it matters. It ruins your weekend. It ruins your week if you get a negative result.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it's just, that's just where we are at the moment, and that's, you know, like we say, we've had the good times, and this is the bad times. We've just got to rough it out and go with it.
Yeah. So the head-to-head in the last 6 competitive meetings, Enfield have only won the once. That was back at the Gallagher in January 2015. Nigel, Maidstone haven't actually lost at Enfield before, so commentator's curse already, apologies. Got that out of the way. Or are you confident of the Stones possibly keeping that run going on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm confident. I mean, the last time we was there, I said about they've advertised it as their biggest game in their history, but probably the biggest game since the last game against Maidstone, which was the FA Cup 4th qualifying round game, when we already knew what we were going to be playing Cheltenham, getting Chelmsford in my head, get that out of your head. But Cheltenham, the Cheltenham FA Cup game, which was probably our best game prior to the Ipswich game, going on the FA Cup theme again. But yeah, it was that 3-1 extra time win there, wasn't it, on a Tuesday evening after we'd had that very last minute Joe Piggott saviour to rescue a draw to force a replay in the original game. So yeah, it's a bit of a lucky. I mean, I know those that have been to the game before, the Donkey Lane before, but it is an athletic stadium, so the crowd again is a little bit further away. So hopefully that will help us, and
Yes.
we can perform. We're going to do it. Come on, you Stones. Getting that one in early.
So remember, if you can't make it to the game, as usual, make sure to tune in to myself and Nigel from 2:40 on Stones Live on Saturday. You'll see us rather on the Hot Take. You might hear us on there as well, to be honest. Hopefully it all works as usual. So you'll see us on the Hot Take, and you'll hear us and see us on the highlights once they go online a few hours after the game. So, well, dear viewer, that's another preview at an end, and an end to the poor form is sought by both on Saturday. So here's hoping the Stones come out on top and get that first win since opening day. Thanks again for watching, and as always,
Come on, you Stones!
Please.